Yeah, we're live. It's 7-Eleven. So reminds me I need to go to the store. Actually, I'll bet I do. Look, 7-Eleven. It's Karma or Profit or something. I'd say I was just trying to search for the 4-valve 6.8-liter V10 videos, and I couldn't find them. I found some stuff in forums and stuff, but I just haven't been able to find the video yet. But it is I saw some of the cutaways for the or not cutaways, but I saw some of the photos of the cut up cylinder heads and that kind of stuff. It's very, very cool. And I'm excited about it. I hope that they do it, and I hope that it goes well. I guess getting the cam dowels is going to be problematic. Getting those lined up maybe, and then obviously they have to have custom cams ground for that. Although maybe they'll go gangster. Well, they wouldn't be able to go gangster weld cams together, so the firing order would be off. But that will be interesting. But it brings up an interesting point, or interesting. It brings up an interesting consideration. Obviously, we always salute people doing crazy stuff, like guys that weld together blocks and make V10 LS motors, or guys that put Boss heads or LS heads on the inline Ford motor, especially in that case. Like doing the stuff because it's weird. 100%. I'm behind it. I'm all in on that. There is no reason that people shouldn't do that stuff, even if it's less than optimum. I mean, let's see what kind of airflow can you get out of it. And this is the question. This will be a good poll. Okay, with the flow rate of ported 3-valve heads, does the 6.8-liter modular Ford V10 even need 4V heads? We'll see. We're using logic here to talk about something that's not done because it's logic based. So from a logical standpoint, if we take a look at, like, for instance, the one that I mentioned, the 300-inch inline 6-cylinder Ford, man, whenever I start talking to you guys, I start coughing. When we take a look at that 6-cylinder, that's an example where welding up Boss heads, or welding up the any kind of LS head, especially a ported version, or an LS3 head, would be more than enough. That's an example where the existing cylinder head and the existing cylinder head in ported form, and with the lack of aftermarket heads available for that, it makes a lot of sense, because then the thing that you would be going to all the trouble to put together and welding it together and making a custom intake manifold and doing all the stuff that you need to do to make it work would be definitely worthwhile. You would definitely get a performance gain from it. And so, it has both things. It has like a coolness factor, and which really, honestly, we don't even need to talk about the other stuff, but because that's enough of a reason. But it has the coolness factor. It's like me considering putting the V10 in the Mustang. You're not doing that because I have an aluminum LS. The aluminum LS will make more power than the V10 will. It'll be lighter. It'll be more fuel efficient. It'll just be better, really, from a performance standpoint in every way, except for torque at 2,000 RPM. But again, like we talked about, if you turbo the 5.3, there won't be a shortage of torque. There will be an overabundance of it. So, but putting the V10 in there makes a coolness statement all by itself. So, and the same thing with a 6-cylinder, doing that, just doing LS heads or Boss heads or whatever head you wanted to put on there that shares a common kind of bore center would be fine. But and so you'd have, you'd have the best of both worlds, because you'd have the coolness, and then also you'd have plenty of flow potential and power potential for the inline 6-cylinder. It'll be cool if they build up the rest of the motor to take advantage of that, and then have enough camshaft to utilize that thing with, with an LS type camshaft, 600 lift and 230 degrees of duration. They have enough compression, and then the intake manifold, you could make your own big port. I think I would do an LS3 so I could have the ports be big enough, because you're going to need more airflow for each cylinder than you would with a V8. But so let's talk about the V10 now. So on the V10, the 3-valve is definitely better than the 2-valve. A 3-valve head easily outflows a 2-valve head. So I could see why stepping up, if you wanted more performance, we've talked about this many times, having more head flow, definitely the way to go. A way better idea. Having more head flow, even if you have a mild cam, it's always better. Try it. We see this in the comparison between like the Boss 302 and the Chevy DZ 302, that the Boss does it with less compression and less cam because it has so much head flow. And so you have that option to run a milder combination, but still make good power because you got lots of head flow. If you want to even go crazy and take advantage of all that head flow, put wilder camshaft, cam timing in it, more compression, all of that stuff. So that's the nice thing about like a 3-valve head on the V10 compared to a 2-valve head. On the 3-valve version, I think we have a guy that was here that's done a bunch of work on them and has a high horsepower one. But he was saying that you could get ported versions of the head to be in the lowish 300s, 320 or 330, I think is the number that he was talking about, which is really, really good. I mean, that's kind of Coyote 4-valve territory. So the other thing is to consider is that sort of head flow is even more impressive because it's on a V10. So because we have more cylinders relative to a V8, we could make the same power with much less head flow on a 10-cylinder than you can on an 8-cylinder. So the relative amount of flow is even greater. So we have the potential to make a lot of power with a V10 that has head flow like that. So how much more can we get from a ported set of 4-valve, either B heads, or I don't know if they used a Navigator head or a Ford GT head or Cobra head or something. I don't know how much more they could get out of porting those. I'm thinking mid 300s or something. But then the question is, does it need that? I mean, of course we want that because that's, it really, it's not a matter of do we need it? It's a matter of do we want it? And yes, we want that. But would the V10, be able to take advantage of if a 4-valve head could in ported form offer more flow and power potential than the 3-valve head? Will the V10 be able to take advantage of that? So you guys can answer that in the comments and let me know what you think. Do you think that that's a thing? And again, I don't want people to think I'm putting down the idea of putting 4-valve heads in it, because I'm all in on that. That's 100% yes. Everybody should. Well, the people that are doing it should definitely do it because it's very, very cool. Like the guy building the V8 out of the Honda stuff, all of the weird stuff, I wholeheartedly salute. And which is why I set records in a 1-liter Chevy Sprint Turbo, because this is weird. It's obviously not the fastest car there. It's the fastest car in its class. But it's just we celebrate weirdness, so it's very important. But I'm thinking that, especially, I mean, I can't imagine porting porting V10s heads would be even worse than porting, V8 heads. But having more head flow is good. So making lots of power, but then with the V10s, and these guys have more of a problem trying to overcome that with a 4-valve version, because they're going to have definitely custom cams done. So you're going to be talking, they can't do a regrind cam. It's going to have to be some sort of billet core or something that they're going to have to do. So that not only is it time consuming and a technological challenge, but it's a financial challenge too, because you're not going to be able to whip that together on the cheap. I don't think. It'll be interesting to see. I can't wait to see them run it. I don't think that they have yet, right? I haven't been able to find the video yet if they have. And obviously it'll make it easier on the 2-valve and the 3-valve version, because stock cams are already available for that, so that means regrinds are available for it. And some guys I think have had cores done, although I'm sure that the cores for those were not, billet cores were not cheap, even if they already made them. If somebody already tooled up to make them, I'm sure that's still not cheap, but still cool though. So I'm excited about the V10 stuff, as you guys can tell. And then obviously, the easy way to fix all of this is just add boost. So head flow and cam and super richy intake, and then boost, and all that's good. And them doing that is the same reason that I do custom manifolds, that I have a bunch of custom manifolds that I did sitting around for stuff that never amounted to anything. Oh, I'm going to build this custom manifold and make a custom manifold so I can make the best manifold for an application, and then I can sell it. And how many times has that happened? I mean, I've made really good manifolds, but none of them have ever been sold. So, that's all part of the deal, though. I just do it for the love of the game. Houston's in the house, so we'll see we'll see what you guys are doing. How's our poll doing? First of all, we're split. 52% are saying we don't really need the 4-valve head flow, but I'm sure internally they're saying they need to do it, obviously, anyway. Admiral's here for the 6.8 talk. Yeah, we're talking about the 4-valve dudes. Three-valve, 4-valve, 5-valve, whatever it takes. I have a set of Borla shorties for my 6.8 to flip and use to mount dual turbos at some point. That will work. You could do it with a stock manifold too. I don't know if the stock manifolds flip, but if they do, I don't know about the bolt pattern on them, but if it does, you can use those too. The healthy torquer is every American's birthright. 3-valve head have 2 intake ports and different shapes. So what do you guys think about them on the 3-valve? What do you think about them favoring the intake port flow versus the exhaust flow? Because we get that question all the time. Well, what happens on the turbo deal if you just port the exhaust port? Because the exhaust is so important. Well, is it? On a 3-valve head, it's apparently not. On a pro stock head, it's also not. On most motors, the exhaust is the redheaded stepchild of the ports. Burns, funny bike, Jeff. Did Ford have a 4-valve 5.4 motor? Yes, they did. The Navigators and the GT500s and the Ford GTs, all those were 5.4 5-valves, and then also a 5.8 in the case of the GT500. Can you do a 5.3 stroke to 383? Yeah, you put a 4-inch crank in it, and then a 3904, 3905, 3902-ish bore size, and they make good power. I have videos up on 383 stuff. Apparently, there are Ford 6.8 liter V10 turbo engines in industrial applications sold by Cummins. I wonder if they did forged internals on those. And the exhaust manifolds that I have that Bart has that he's going to loan to me may have been from that. I think my 3V heads flowed 330 Underdog. Yeah, that's. I think you're probably the guy that I was talking about. Lots of 544 valves throughout the years. Aussie stuff is really good. Arguably better than the 5.4 Cobra R. I do like the. I sure do like the intake manifolds on the Australian stuff. I don't think you're going to be turning the V10 past 6,500. One of the guys on here was turning his beyond that, but it was a super like modified version. Richard, we're testing the V10 now, so that means next on the chopping block is a Raptor Super Duty 6.2 liter V8. I've seen all total at every wrecking yard that I've been to and every engine bay that I've looked up, I've seen a total of 0 of those. Mercedes-Benz made the best 3-valve ever. Did they? The 4 of you guys want to spin it up to 8,000 on the V10? That's going to require more than 4-valve heads to do that, but it'll be interesting. V10 is definitely other guys. I thought the V10 had welded cams, low brazed to steel. I don't know about the V10. The other modular stuff had the pressed on lobes. Not pressed on. They would align all the lobes on a hollow tube, and then using a hydraulic ram, they would push a steel ball bearing through it, and it would swedge up the tube. Was the Viper V10 a 4-valve now? The V10 doesn't have variable cam timing. Viper was a pushrod V8. I mean V10. Stacy, how many times are you going to talk about the industrial applications? I better not see that comment again. Any publications to read for intake manifold design and construction? How about design and construction? Does anybody have anything out there? The one that I have has intake manifold theory, but not really how to build it. I have a set of ported chamber worked 3-valve 6/8 heads and a forward balanced rotating assembly. Richard, I have a mild NA53. Like to buy a fast intake, hoping to increase horsepower in the future. Is a 102 millimeter intake problematic for a mild engine? No. You'll be fine. Richard, have you ever looked at the Yamaha 5-valve? I've seen the Yamaha 5-valve, the 4AG motors. Those are cool. I'm a big fan of those motors. I like those. If I do a bed mount turbo setup, do I put the O2s on the turbo down pipes? That's where I would put them. Donald Wood ported my 3-valve heads. Yes, the Boss 290 intake is very, very cool. Dodge Ram versus a Ford V10. The Dodge Ram V10 is quite a bit bigger. The 3-valve head, I think, was designed originally by Jim Fueling. And I think that there was a litigation or something with the people from Mercedes about that. Eric, both of the V10s were designed as gas replacements or alternatives for the turbo diesel stuff. Aaron, why do you suppose 3-valve heads don't have 2 exhausts on a single intake, since most heads seem to need more exhaust help rather than intake help? That's how they make more power, is get more intake. Getting the exhaust out is very, very easy. The Gen 5 and 4 V10 had a split cam. It was a form of variable valve timing. Technically speaking, you always want more exhaust than intake flow. Said no one ever. Dom, apparently the split pin crank isn't really an issue. Knowledge, I didn't know that the 1.8s were 5 valves. I thought that was only a 1.6. Have you seen a 3-valve V10 in a road race application? I don't think that would be my choice for a road race application. It's long and heavy, and that's not a good combination. Although somebody was saying that the length of that, the length of the V10, I think it was Bart was telling me, isn't any different than the length of a dressed 351 Windsor if you go out to where the accessories are, because they've tightened the accessory up on the V10, and then so the length of it isn't terrible, but it's going to be fairly heavy. There was also a 5.8 V10. I've never heard of that. Julius, I have made manifolds out of the 5.4 stuff. Just cut off the rest of the manifold and essentially threw it away. I ran a 20 valve 1.8T for a long time. Oh, in the Volkswagen stuff, yeah. There was a prototype short deck V10. Was that the one that was in the GT90 or whatever? It sounds like, I think It sounds like somebody's cleaning shoes. Richard, can you mix heads? 862 had an 899 and a 48. Wait, you mean 799s? You want to put one on one side and one on the other? It would just make a little bit less power on one side than the other. Do 3-valve manifolds hold up the boost? Yeah, just like every composite manifold, all the LS stuff, the Ford stuff, that all works under boost. Richard, any of the 9905, some later 1.8 Ts and VWs? Yeah, we were, but the 5 valves that we were talking about were the Toyota ones. I know that the VWs have that, but we were talking about the Toyota 4AGs. Love to do a V10 version of the 6.2. It's a Hemi, but it has a very durable VCT and single overhead cam. Is there such thing as too much intake flow versus the exhaust flow? I've never seen that. We do have frogs outside. If you take a look at the intake to exhaust flow relationship of a Boss head or Cleveland head or a LS head, you'll see it's way out of the optimum balance. and I'll bet if you float a pro stock head, you'd see it's way out of the optimum balance. But it has a lot of intake flow. Appreciate all your videos, Richard. Always keep me informed. Happy to help. The V10 is essentially a 5.4, 2 more cylinders. Yep. Well, Dom, you can go do your homework online and see what a 5.4 2-valve makes, what it's rated at, and see what the 5.4 V10 is rated at. And the same thing for the 3-valve versions, and see but they don't have the same, I don't think that they have the same cam timing, I would guess, because a 4.6 3-valve Mustang is rated at 300 horsepower. And then the V10 is rated at 362 for the highest horsepower version. Let's see. So the specific output is different. The specific output is better on the V8 version, at least on the 4.6. Isn't the 6.8 V10 just a 5.4 with 2 more cylinders? Are the pistons and the rods identical on a V10 compared to a 5.4? Aaron, if the 500 horsepower occurred at the exact same RPM, the cylinder pressure should be very, very close. take that back. It might not be. The peak cylinder pressure for the nitrous might be higher during the stroke because the average cylinder pressure is increased in a turbo. I need to look at a cylinder trace of a nitrous to see. The peak cylinder pressure might be a little higher. Admiral, how much money are you going to win in this lottery? 3-valve 5.4 is rated at 300. Okay. Have you ever done a rear mount turbo? I have videos up on a simulated rear mount turbo on the engine dyno. Ron, I think that that GT90 deal was didn't they do a V10 for that? Methanol and nitrous. Can't find much information on it. I have never run a motor on just methanol. GT90 was a quad turbo V12. Okay. One more question. Can I put the roller lifter, the 4.8 Vortec engine 2002 to the new one? Are you asking if a Gen 7 lifter? What is a Gen 7 lifter? A Gen 7 big block Chevy lifter? Is that which one you're asking about? So Shadow Ops, you read that and got LS7 lifter out of that? Front and back of the Mustang V8 were cut and welded together for the GT9. I thought that they did laser weld the blocks on those. You have 93 octane. What would be a safe PSI and horsepower to get out of an LY6? I don't know what you can get away with on 91. And the guy somewhere in the 10 to 15 pound range, but you're gonna have to not run very much timing in it to make it work. That's going to be the critical thing. It's getting the tune right. Getting it all tuned up. So still at 60%. No, on the flow. Have you ever tested the Ford Racing Boss block? Not on a modular one. And I don't like going to the limit, the bore limits anyway, of the of blocks, and certainly not certainly not if you're going to be running boost on. In fact, I wouldn't do that specifically because there's no need to make it bigger. If I was trying to get every last ounce of NA power out of it and I had a budget for that kind of stuff, then you just make it as big as you can. Richard, can you overcome a bad exhaust port with a big split pattern cam? I don't think you can. I don't think that the cam duration is going to change the flow rate. Dom, sleeving the block is a good idea. We did that for two reasons on the LS stuff. I sleeved an LS6 block, and you put a longer sleeve in it so that we can run more stroke. And then if you put a sleeve in it, you can run a bigger bore also. So we made out of that motor, we made a 468-inch motor because we put I think a 4250 stroke in it, and it was like a 4185 bore or something. All right, Steve, we'll see you. So it's a Fox body Mustang with a V10 turbo 6-speed with plus 0 to 750 foot-pounds. Ricky, why are you blocked? There you go, Shadow. Tell him. Did the 463 valve come with VVT? Yes, it did. I wasn't able to run it on the engine dyno, but it did. Terry, how much power are you trying to make with the Cadillac? Ron, that's what we were talking about. Somebody's doing that right now. I think it's the guys from Grassroots Motorsports are welding together 4-valve heads to run on the V10. The cams are both up in their cam spots. You can see them now. Admiral, you want a big bore 6.8? Not with turbos. Less bore. Less bore, more wall thickness. That's how we roll. The turbos increase displacement all by themselves. So, Admiral, you want to make a Godzilla size? Rumble Canada, the 462 valve will handle 600 horsepower anyway. To make it go plaid. It's pretty fast. Do you tune the CPU and take VATs off a 2002 Chevy and delete? I don't do factory ECUs. Goes to 11. I'd buy another. I'd buy a modified McLaren F1, but also another Chevy Sprint Turbo. I have an old Chevy 454 at peanut port heads. What horsepower should I expect? What horsepower should you expect from what combination? Is it stock? And are you going to test it on an engine dyno, chassis dyno, the track, street, the derriere dyno? Bobby, what happened to your Godzilla? The modulars, most modern engines have powder metal rods, like the LSs do too. The 3-valve has weak rods. Is a 3-valve rod different than a 2-valve rod? Well, Terry, you don't need a you don't need that big of a turbo for that. Have you ever tested removing the intake elbow from the 2-valve and attaching the throttle body directly to the intake? That's not the same bolt pattern, is it? I don't know that you would see very much from that. Did you think a 240 duration 585 lift cam would work well on a V10? I don't think so. I don't think I would run a single pattern cam. I mean, it would work better than a stock cam. It'd make more than a stock cam. At least it would make more at the top. Richard, I've received so much hate for this idea. I'm going to run the 6.1 Hemi valves, my 5.7 pre-Eagle. I'm pairing them to a stock stage 2 cam and spring kit from comp. The 6.1s are 10% lighter. Are the valve lengths and everything the same? I wonder what the big bore 2-valve record is. Like, you mean how big you can bore it? What are the current plans for the V10? I don't even have one yet. I have somebody that will let me use one, and we're talking about running it on the dyno and then putting it in my Mustang. The lightweight valves are a good idea. Like the LS3 valves, you can turn. I know Brian was saying you could turn those down, and they have run those in other applications because it's a fairly lightweight valve, and it's better than the L99 or the LY6 version, which is a stainless valve and it's quite a bit heavier. So it will help you. It would help you with more RPM with any given spring rate or match frequency. And Jeremy, I don't know if you'll see a power change from that, but if the price is right. Underdog, I wouldn't believe everything that you read on the internet. Why do most newer engines have such small bores? I don't know that I would use most there. I think I would use the modular Fords have them because they screwed up when they designed the motor and gave it a very small bore spacing, so they kind of have to have that. But none of the LS stuff is like that. Yeah, crash. The LS3 valves are good. I think some of the other stuff is as much as 120 grams. Tech. Are you talking about the 2-valve V10? Came late to the stream. You have a V10 that you're going to build. No, I have one that I'm going to borrow and run on the engine dyno, hopefully, and then maybe put in my Mustang. The 6.1 heads, put new valve seats in, and 5.7 heads too. Yeah, V10s are a V10 Formula One motor sounds good. The V10 Viper doesn't sound good. Better than the side piped one does. Can a stock 462L handle 500 foot-pounds of torque? Let's go to the dyno, shall we? Click, 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 click. Modular Ford dyno, 463 valve, 3-valve Vortec. Lots of 3-valve stuff. Let's see here. Coyotes, 4 valves, 3-valve cam test, variable runner intake on the 3-valve. Yeah, you know you like it. Let's see. Boost shootout, 4.6 sprockets, P51 intake manifold. No, that's not it. Cam test. Let's see. We ran all the stock cams. Ran nitrous on that. PI cylinder head. Here we go. Now we're talking somewhere. The Kennyville blower at about 10 pounds made 600 horsepower and 547 foot-pounds of torque. And then the Vortec, 624 horsepower and 547 foot-pounds of torque. So yeah, they'll take more than 500 foot-pounds. This is 500 at the flywheel, by the way, for those that were keeping track. The Jed V10 does sound good. I was working with a team at the Daytona 24-hour race, and they had some Judd V10s in the they were racing against the Ferrari 333s and the Panos cars too. It's pretty cool. The Judd V10s sounded like race motors. The Ford V10 will run to 7,000. Guys are already doing that. The Dodge one I'm sure will too, because I don't know about the truck one. I don't know what the difference is, if it has an oiling system difference or whatever, but the Viper stuff will go that high. You should put a nice light V8 in your Mustang, like the aluminum 5.3 that I have. The Mustang you have is a Fox body, yes. An 88, the best year of the Fox body. Stock 97 454. What power adder would you use? I don't know how you're going to incorporate the throttle body fuel injection on. Oh, 97. That's going to be a I take that back. That's going to be a Vortec motor. That's going to be a Gen 6. So I don't know. I think I know Kenny Bell had a blower kit for those. Positive displacement one would be good. You could put a Torque Storm or something on there too. Or a Vortec or Pro Charger or whatever. Dom, you can try putting a bigger throttle body or get rid of the elbow. I don't think the elbow is limiting you on that. Oh, but that's a 5.4. The 5.4 is going to be different. I'm thinking that the elbow on the 4.6. I haven't tested the 5.4 stuff. I need to look at that. You do have 60 series Detroit diesel turbos, the 73 millimeter compressor. What rubber? What is the heat contained within a wiped exhaust tube? What is that? I think you guys that are talking about the valve train weight are the big thing is that if you were experiencing valve float, this may help cure it. I think you'd have to be looking really, really close to find any power gain from that. I've done a test on valve springs, and you have to look really, really close to find any power gain on it. But there is a slight change in power from going to stiffer springs, assuming that they all have, and I'm talking about in the range where we run the motor. You have to look really, really close in that range. If you're curing a valve float problem, that to me is not gaining power from the reduction in weight from the valve. There should be no valve control problem. There should be no valve float when you do a test. So you'd run the heavy valve and then run the light valve and see if there's any power difference. That's what I would look at. And then the other stuff is other stuff. How hard would it be to run a Ford V10 with ITBs? Does anybody make that? Be freaking sweet to do a roadkill episode to get your Fox and road trip back to California. You mean take the car and the motor that I'd have to put in there are in different states, so that would be hard to do. Can you bore and stroke a 5.4 to 6 liter? No, only if you sleeved it. Underdog. So is that torque number at the tire? Springs springs usually keep valve float away. Lots of people try to control valve train instability with increased spring pressure, and that's not what you do at very high levels. Yeah, Alicia, the Mustang doesn't have a motor in it right now. Do you have live chat on? I don't have live chat on right now. Mad Mod, we were talking really about flow on that. Those other things are good. Does header wrap increase horsepower? Test a header that's wrapped and maybe 3 feet off a collector. See if it contains heat, helps exhaust flow. No, header wrap won't increase power. It won't increase power on a naturally aspirated motor. Richard, did you have COVID recently? No. Dump trucks are tuned for dump truck company owners. That's right. So Underdog, you should do whatever you think works. The 5.4 likes exhaust flow. Okay. Oh, let's see. Reloading. What are they? LS cams? What are they? And are they the same LSA? Are they the same lift? On the 6.8 liter, I think it's all 2 valve versus 3 valve. I don't think it's non-PI versus PI. Stringer, I agree with you. I think that the 5-valve thing, Ferrari tried it in the 355 and the 360, I think, and it's been tried in the upper echelons of most forms of racing, and I don't think that people continued with it. What was the best sounding engine? I personally like them quiet, so anything that has exhaust on it. Knowledge, but at the Formula One level, the ease of manufacturing is not really a thing. On the 6-valve oval piston bike engine, what was it? Was it a 6-valve? Is it Fernando Alonso for his third title? How many has Hamilton won? Engineering Garage. The problem with your question is that the rest of the engine can't be the same on a 4-valve head versus a 2-valve head. The chamber is going to be completely different. The piston design has to be completely different. The intake manifold has to be completely different. The cams are going to be different. There's going to be a lot of things that are different about that. Best sounding Ford 289 hypo. Some of these motors that rev really high that are there sound really good. Lewis has 7. How many is that how many Schumacher had? Did he have 7? Schumacher has 7 as well. I thought that Michael did. The 544 valve he tested only made 420 horsepower. It was very disappointing. It was disappointing. Let's see. It made 444 horsepower, not 420. So come on, don't sell it short. Now it's impressive, right? The NASCAR motors sound good. All of the racing motors of Formula One stuff, like that Judd motor we were talking about, they have a shriek to them that's really pretty good. What's your conclusion as to why it's so low? I don't know. I only test stuff. I don't remember what was this configuration. It had ported navigator heads. It had the shot and Highland cams and a Sullivan intake manifold. It should have made more power than that. I don't have the motor, so I don't have an answer. Yeah, reloading, that would be a completely different test. You'd have to have custom cams done to do what you're talking about. Sergio, I don't know what you mean by running stock block 6.0s. What is your cam question on a 4.8 or a 5.3? The cam should still be small relative to the displacement. I wouldn't run the same cam on a 4.8 as I would on a 6.0. You could run a slightly bigger cam on the bigger motor and still have it idle well and still have it make low speed power because the motor's bigger. But if you're running 1,000 horsepower turbo on both of them, you don't need a very big cam. Reloading, I could get somebody to make me cams to do that. Actually, we don't even need to test it. I'll just call Billy and ask him. He'll be able to tell me. I think both those cams behind me, both of them are LS cams. One of them is a solid roller. Have you ever heard of the Mod Father Mustang? The name sounds kind of familiar, but I have no idea what it is. And we're going to get rid of our pull 58%, saying, we don't need more flow, but we do need the 4-valve head V10, though. You guys should have told me to go to live chat earlier. I'm not seeing a lot of comments that I would miss. Before long, though, a lot of cams will have solenoids. I don't think that you're going to see that. I have not played with the import motors, not on the engine dyno. Not because I don't like them, I do, but it's difficult to get everything to make them work on the engine dyno. Alicia, the Ford V10 is based on the modular Ford program. It's basically a longer 5.4 4-valve or 5.4 3-valve or 5.4 2-valve. James, if you want to learn about porting, you should look at David Vizard's stuff. And go to David Vizard's channel. Everybody should go there and look at his stuff. He does really good stuff. He's been porting for a long time. Or go to who is Eric Weingartner, does lots of porting stuff too. So go take a look at that. And on that note, it is time to go. Today was a good day trading. I was down 600, ended up 100. You got to work at it, man. you got to work that game, and I did. And on that note, I'll see you guys all tomorrow.